Slate is supposed to be a relatively progressive outlet in the media, but they've written a curious piece about Bernie Sanders' podcast. He's got the Bernie Sanders show. I did a story about it recently, and I noted that it was incredibly popular on Facebook. It's gotten millions upon millions, tens of millions of views. It's only been 4 shows, and it's a stunning success. And I wondered why the media wasn't talking about what a success it is. I mean, these are the guys who talked about Trump TV. Oh my God, what if Trump loses and he does Trump TV? Oh, Trump TV, right? Well, here was Bernie Sanders doing a show, and it was, if you're talking about viewers, I mean, he had more viewers than most of the primetime broadcasts on television. Isn't that amazing? He's just doing it on Facebook. Now he's turning it into a podcast, but don't worry, Slate's gonna write about it, and Adam Ragusi, presumably, sorry, I have a tough name too, Adam. Notes right in the beginning, great, look at this. Within a week of its release earlier this month, Bernie Sanders' podcast had climbed to the number 2 slot on iTunes. So they go from Facebook Live to iTunes, they're immediately crushing all those giant podcasts. They leapfrog them right away, go to number 2. Oh, finally, someone in the media is gonna write a good piece about this, right? So right after that, he says, now I'm not sure what that means, but I think it's significant, certainly more significant than the show itself, which is almost as intellectually lazy as it is technically incompetent. Uh-oh, here we go again. Now, if I saw a podcast that went from nothing to, in the first week, number 2, I would think they must be doing something right. I wonder what it is that they're doing right and what I should write about because it's on fire. No. If we're in Washington and we're in the media, now we have to criticize Bernie Sanders no matter where we work. And so we have to call him incompetent and intellectually lazy. Now look, you want to criticize the production quality. They're not in the TV business, they're not in the media business overall. And yes, it has some spotty audio. That's a perfectly fair criticism and not a big deal. But really a tiny part of the story, no. If you think that that was all and I'm mad about that, buckle up, here we go. Almost every sentence in the article is dripping with disdain and nothing but wall-to-wall criticism, as usual. So here we go. He says, a popular talk show that's hosted and editorially controlled by a current government official is something we normally expect from a Latin American dictatorship, such as the late Hugo Chávez's hilarious and terrifying Aló Presidente. That didn't take long, did it? Right away, boom, he compares him to a dictator for just doing a podcast. Now you're a dictator if you do a podcast, and compares him to Hugo Chávez. Now he could say, look, I'm generally liberal, but this is unacceptable, and if you're in the media, you have to earn your stripes by working for a giant corporation or doing whatever I did, okay? And you can't just go in there and become the number 2 podcast, otherwise I'll call you a dictator, how dare you, right? Okay, bitter man, I got you. So then Adam says, though I suppose the use of state TV or radio for such a program is theoretically a more despotic move than offering the same sort of thing for download on the internet. Well, my bad, Adam turns out to be merciful. He just characterized Bernie Sanders as slightly less despotic than a person he described as a dictator, Hugo Chávez, okay? So Hugo Chávez had a whole host of issues. I would never, ever compare him to Bernie Sanders because that makes no sense. But because he has a successful podcast, he has earned the ire of the media. Well, then you're like Hugo Chávez. You both, at some point, did something in the media, and you both breathe air. I rest my case, drop the mic, even if it's a lavalier mic. Okay. Yeah, but Bernie has been in the media all along. Every week he did an hour with Tom Hartman on the radio. Was he Hugo Chávez back then? No, now he's got power. He's the most popular senator in the country. We've got to tear him to shreds. All of a sudden he's Hugo Chávez. Bernie Sanders even did a public access show back when he was in Vermont. Was he Hugo Chávez then? No, that's all the times that he's done all these different radio, TV shows, etc. Not a dictator then. Now you're popular? No, you're a dictator doing a podcast. I mean, it's as if he murdered people, as if he tortured them. He's just doing a podcast, for Christ's sake. All right. Oh wait, my bad again. Look at this. Adam turns out to be merciful again. He says, quote, also, Bernie Sanders is not a dictator. Oh, well, thank you for pointing that out. This is, 3 dictator references I've just read to you. And this is all right in the beginning of the article, but I think the overall article, you'd have to do a count 4, 5, 6. I don't know how many times he compared him to a dictator, but he says he's not, to be fair. I mean, what a weird thing. Could you imagine if I said, pick a name, I don't know, let's say Adam. Now, look, to be fair, Adam is not a child molester. Ooh, that sounded harsh, didn't it? But why? Why, Adam? Why do you come and watch a guy's podcast instead of talking about how successful it is? All of a sudden you're saying, I guess he's not a dictator. I mean, I just compared him to one. I compared him to a tyrant, a despot, and a dictator. And then I said, well, I mean, I guess technically he's not a dictator. Did I say he was a dictator? Technically, I said he wasn't. And right after that, he says, he's an independent junior senator from a tiny state who caucuses with the minority party. More disdain. But we've already had another guy make the leap from the popular show host, producer to commander-in-chief, and did that make the United States feel more or less like Venezuela to you? So now he's comparing him to Donald Trump, who did a cheesy reality show. But as you're about to see, he's gonna say the Bernie Sanders show is boring because he talks about policy. Policy, why would anybody care about that? Well, apparently a lot of people would, because that's why it's so popular. No, I'm not gonna talk about that. I'm just gonna say, no, he's like a reality show clown. I'm now gonna compare him to Donald Trump, and since Donald Trump's a bad guy, well, he's probably like Hugo Chávez, and so there it is. I proved my case, Bernie Sanders is like Hugo Chávez. Can you believe this? I mean, this is insanity. But they hate him, they hate him. Adam doesn't think he hates him. Adam thinks he's a liberal. And my guess, I don't know, I don't want to speak for him, although later he talked about how money in politics might be a good thing. But in Washington, the groupthink is, can't have Bernie, dangerous. That guy would change things. Ooh, status quo, I love it, I want to hug it. Oh, I love status quo so much. Okay, he then goes on and describes the podcast as, quote, comfortable, boring listening. Policy. Nobody in Washington wants to hear about policy. And he talked to Bill Nye about science, boring. Jane Mayer about money and politics and the Koch brothers, boring. Come on, man. You haven't even done a single podcast on a missing plane. This guy. Well, and what did you think about Trump's last tweet? I don't even know. You're so boring. But Adam, did you ever consider that going from nothing to the #2 podcast maybe is not boring to all the people who love it? Might that have made a slightly more interesting story than the fact that you and your friends in Washington are so bored by Bernie Sanders and his dictatorial talk about fixing the country, Medicare for all and education for everybody? Boring, dictator. Okay. Then he challenges you guys because he's mad at you for making it such a popular podcast. And he says, are you really so insecure in your worldview that you need to listen to the 2 people uncritically reinforce it for half an hour each week? Referring to Bernie Sanders and the people that he is interviewing. Now, this is ironic from the media that listens to cable news 24/7, thinks cable news is the only thing relevant on the planet, and what do? They reinforce the establishment point of view. But if you ask the Adams of the world, oh, no way, man. No, Don Lemon, critical thinker, award-winning journalist, does neutrality right down the middle. Republicans said this, but then Democrats said that. Oh, the Pentagon said this, and then the Pentagon said that. Oh, well, that is compelling. My bad. Who would want to listen to a podcast on policy to reinforce your views when we could pretend that we are not reinforcing the establishment by doing their propaganda 24/7 on cable news? Gee, I wonder why people are looking for an alternative. I can't quite figure it out. Why don't I just be disdainful of it instead? But he admits that he is flummoxed. He says, I come back to my fundamental bewilderment about the popularity of the Bernie Sanders show. See, but Adam, right there, okay, fine, this was near the very end of the article. I'm like, oh, thanks God, finally, at least some intellectual curiosity. What I would have written the whole article about. Oh my God, how did this get to #2? Maybe I would ask some of the people who listen to it, what do you like about it? They're on Facebook, you can see it. They're on iTunes, they're on all these different places. You could, if you're a journalist, you could call them up. Hey, what fascinated you so much about this? Does he go in that direction? No, of course not. No, he goes on to say you shouldn't listen to it, and it's your fault for puzzling him like this by finding it popular. He says, how is it that a political PR team noticeably unschooled in the ways of audio production. It is presently boxing with the likes of NPR at the top of the iTunes charts. I do declare all my good friends in Washington love NPR. The banjos are fantastic, and generally they've been neutered, so they say that Republicans say this and Democrats say that. How could he be doing better than my neutral friends at NPR? I do declare I am bewildered. A despot like Bernie Sanders. So popular. Okay. We're near the end here, although this is fun. He says podcasting and the internet in general has diminished the role of gatekeepers, and that's mostly a good thing. He doesn't believe that at all, as you're about to find out. But just because politicians can now bypass the media filter, a little bit more bitterness right there, and talk to you directly doesn't mean you should listen. At least not in the numbers that would propel a podcast to the iTunes top 10. What a wonderful conclusion. Oh, I figured it out. Why is this so popular? It's your fault. You shouldn't be listening to it in the first place. I mean, not in the top 10, not next to my beloved other mainstream media outlets. Oh, God, you and your wanting to talk to progressives and actually have it be popular and talk about policy. I declare it boring and technically incompetent. Stop listening to it. Stop listening to it right now. Okay. Finally, he says, those subscribers who swarmed in on Sanders' name alone might not keep with the show once they actually listen to it. The hubris is oozing out of every pore. So, I mean, I do declare, it's very popular now, but it's, of course, we just branding. He just went to it because it says Bernie Sanders. I mean, you people are thoughtless, the ones that look for policy, when you should be chasing after the latest tweet or whatever that happened with Trump lately, like my friends on cable news do. You guys, once you actually listen to his ideas, of course you will then stop watching this and listening to it, because me and all my friends in Washington are very much opposed to it. So, know your role and hurry up and stop listening to Bernie Sanders already. But Adam, we've now had a couple of years to listen to Bernie Sanders, and guess what happened? He is, according to polling, not my opinion, the most popular senator in the entire country. Out of 100 senators, he is number one. Did that not give you pause that perhaps people like listening to him? Remember when everybody in the media declared his speeches boring on the campaign trail, but tens of thousands of people showed up anyway? Remember when he closed a 60-point lead on Hillary Clinton? As you guys said that his hair was too rumpled and his appearance was not good enough, and then he didn't have enough name recognition back then. Now you say it's all because of name recognition. You've tried to find excuse after excuse after excuse. Perhaps you should consider one other option. People really like what he has to say. They actually agree with his policy positions, and almost no one else is saying it. And since they're thirsty and hungry for it, when Bernie Sanders says it, even in a way that you don't find technically competent enough, or it has not scintillated you enough, they still love it. Perhaps you should have written a story about that instead of what you and your good friends in the media think about it and how they find it incompetent and unacceptable. And perhaps instead of yelling at the audience to stop listening to Bernie Sanders, you should have started listening to Bernie Sanders, even if you don't agree with him, to try to figure out what it is that people love so much. But you never made that effort. Instead, you wrote this, and my guess is that the Sanders followers will have as much disdain for your type of journalism as that you do for Bernie Sanders' podcast. And given what you've written, it is well earned. Young Turks. If you're a member of the Young Turks, you not only get the whole 2-hour Young Turks show on demand anytime you want, ad-free, but you also get so many other shows. Old School, you'll love it. Aggressive Progressive for guys who are true progressives. Now also Nerd Alert for gaming and tech. What the Flick for movie reviews. You will love it. Check it out right now at tytnetwork.com/join.